Grief counseling is something that we all have to deal with at one point or another, whether you're trying to console someone who's had a substantial loss of a family member or whether you yourself are going through that loss. Something we all have to deal with at some point in time. And Susan Latta is here. Susan is with Hospice of Chattanooga. Susan, good to have you back.
Thank you.
Before we get into the specifics of the camp that you have got coming up, your title is Bereavement Director.
Yes.
Pretty broad. Tell me exactly what you do.
So I help coordinate all the different bereavement aspects through Hospice of Chattanooga. I provide individual counseling, family counseling, group counseling, preparation for camps that we're going to be talking about as well, and just coordinating and making sure that the grief aspects through Hospice of Chattanooga are taken care of.
Seems like a lot of people, especially older individuals, they don't like grief counseling. They don't like receiving it, and they're uncomfortable in how to give it. And it's a lot simpler than what a lot of people think, correct?
It is, and everybody grieves differently.
Sure.
So how you grieve over the death of someone that you love and how I grieve will be different.
Right.
There's no right way to do this, there's no wrong way. And a lot of people do not need grief counseling. Some people find it really helpful to be in a support group. Other people that's not their thing at all. And
Right.
so talking one-on-one can be helpful. More than anything, to validate the sadness, the different feelings that come up with all different aspects of grief.
Like going back generations, men didn't cry. That was frowned upon.
Correct.
We finally managed to break that age-old notion. And dealing with kids who have had the loss of a parent or a grandparent, that's a whole different element than dealing with an adult.
Yes, and kids grieve very, very differently. You know, it's not just a parent. It may be a grandparent. It may be a sibling. It may be a favorite aunt or uncle or a friend. But how kids grieve is very, very different than how you and I as adults.
Sure.
Kids talk in very small segments. So they may say to you, my dad died, and then you may want to respond with, well, tell me about that. Well, they don't want to talk about that, so they may go play with whatever, Play-Doh or whatever. And then they may come back and say, yeah, he was killed in a car crash. And so it's very small segments. And one of the things I think that's important as adults is to allow them to share their story
On their own
how they
terms.
want to.
Sure.
Yes.
What's the one big piece of advice that you would give to someone who is going to have to help a child through the grief process?
Is to allow them to talk and to not discount their grief. Because often people discount kids' grief thinking, well, they're too young, they don't understand.
Sure.
They, lots of different reasons.
Hospice of Chattanooga has got a grief camp that is coming up. It's a one-day camp specifically designed for children ages 5 through 12, correct? What's going to be covered that day?
So our theme this year is Remember Me. And we will have 3 different groups of kids based upon age. We have Kids on the Block coming, and they do a segment on grief, which is just precious and wonderful.
Right.
There are 3 breakout groups throughout the day where they'll get a chance to do different activities. And then we have an art activity where they're doing memory boxes this year. We have a big energy activity, which is like relays and just kind of getting some of that energy out. And then we also have a music component with some drumming and other musical instruments. And so the kids rotate through those 3 major activities throughout the day.
Is there a cost for this?
There's no cost, and it's open to any child in the community, and you do not need to have had Hospice of Chattanooga.
Right.
There's
Sounds like
also a
wonderful thing.
parent support group or an adult support group that goes concurrently from 9 to 11:30 in the morning.
And you're going to be doing a seminar camp for teenagers coming up a little bit later into
October
the fall.
20th,
correct?
yes.
Susan, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for
Thank
your time
you.
and for what you're doing for
Thank you.
the entire community. Here's the information on the grief camp. It is coming up on the 15th of September, starting at 8:30 in the morning. Christ United Methodist Church. You can find out more by checking out hospiceofchattanooga.org. Hospiceofchattanooga.org. Stick around. We have got a lot more of Let's Chat right after this.